Welcome to this episode of the Three Pillars Academy. I'm Kate Bergstrom, Associate Commissioner of the America East Conference, and today I'm joined by two America East head women's basketball coaches. We have Morgan Valley from the Hartford Hawks and Colleen Mullen from the Albany Great Danes. We're excited today to talk about navigating life and work while being an openly gay coach in Division I. So let's start by hearing from both of you about your journeys to where you're sitting today as a Division I head coach. Colleen, let's start with you.
Okay, well, I grew up outside of Boston, a little bit north of Boston, and I graduated in 1998 from Chelmsford High School. Then I went on to University of New Hampshire. Go Wildcats. I can root for the Wildcats, except when they're playing Albany, in 2003. And then I kind of started my career in coaching after that. It took me a year to get into coaching, and that took me at different stops at different levels. I got my kind of big break as a director of basketball operations at Northern Illinois. So a girl from Boston moving out to corn country, but it was a great experience. And then from there I went to Southern New Hampshire and worked for one of my great mentors, Karen Pinkos, for 2 years in the Northeast 10 Conference and got great experience there. And then I moved on to the Patriot League to Lehigh University. Then I took a stop down in Brooklyn, New York at LIU Brooklyn. And then kind of my last stop was Army West Point for the last 7 years. And we had a great run there. And of course, Maureen McGarrity's father, Dave McGarrity, the big guy, has been an unbelievable mentor and just influence in my career. I became the associate head coach after one season, and we had a lot of success, and then I was fortunate enough to get this opportunity at UAlbany last year. So here I am.
Fantastic. We're excited to have you. Morgan, what about you?
Yeah, about halfway through my college career, I decided, this is what I want to do. I want to be a college coach. So coach let me stay on and be a student assistant for a year at UConn. And then I went to Holy Cross. Coach Givens gave me my first shot in college coaching. Forever be grateful to him for that. And then went to UNH for a year with Kristen Cole. Left there to go to Towson with Joe Matthews. And then UMass with Sharon Dolly for 4 years, which is the longest place I've stayed. I've been around the block a little bit. And then down to Virginia Tech with a former college teammate and AAU teammate's dad, and Dennis Wolf, for a year. And then I got a phone call from a friend of mine who was an assistant at Washington. And it was the first job I said, I just took. Like, I didn't, my parents were always the people I lean on for advice, and I didn't even call them. 7-minute phone conversation with Mike, and I was like, I'll take it. And so I moved across the country to Seattle and had a great experience out there. And then Mike left for Arkansas, and I tried to get the Washington job. I didn't get it. And I wasn't moving to Arkansas. There's a lot of places I'll live, but the South isn't one of them. And then Adia, who is the person who put me in touch with Mike in the first place, offered me a spot on her staff at Arizona, and here I am. So.
Well, good. Well, we're really excited to have both of you in the league. And so to jump in, one of the things that really marks a cornerstone aspect of this America East Conference is the inclusive environment that we try to create as a conference, but also that I know our member institutions create. So maybe talk to me a little bit about how you've been supported and encouraged by your institutions as an openly gay Division I head coach. Either one.
I just think when people get to know who you are, other things don't really matter. So, building relationships with people at the different places I've been. My path was slightly different. It wasn't like I was, from the start, like, oh, hey, I'm gay. It was kind of just, I just kind of happened, and I don't hide it, but I am not necessarily jump right out. It's the first thing you hear me say. So I think building relationships with people and them allowing to get to know you, and then they may care, but they respect you and love you for who you are. And I've been lucky enough to work at several places that have been unbelievably supportive.
Yeah, I think, just to go off what Morgan says, it's like when you're your genuine self, it makes the conversations easier. For me, going through the interview process, becoming a head coach, I knew because I have a wife and I have kids. And for me, knowing that the number one priority is them, that I wanted to take a job where I knew that my family was going to be embraced, that I could be my authentic self, because I knew that there was no way I could coach to the best of my ability if I couldn't be that way. So going through the process, unfortunately, you have to kind of ask the questions of like, I wonder what type of administration that is. Are they supportive? Are they, do they have any other openly gay coaches, or do they hire women in women roles? And that's where I was kind of looking at different positions as I knew I was ready for the next step as a head coach. And then just my opinion of the America East and knowing their affiliation with You Can Play and the Spread Respect, I understood in an overarching, way that that this conference was something that was committed to diversity and inclusion. So, with that, knowing that the administrators at those universities and those institutions were going to have to be on board with those types of initiatives. And of course, I went to a state university. State universities tend to be more accepting. And so I had a strong interest in Albany. And I was very specific when I was looking at head coaching positions, because I truly wanted to be at the right fit where I thought I could be successful for a long period of time, but also I could really be myself. And for Morgan and I, we didn't have a lot of role models for openly gay coaches. And even still, you go to the WBCA and you see a panel and they've got the two out coaches on the panel, and so we knew, and I don't think we knew we needed to be trailblazers. I think we just are at that type of generation where we want to be ourselves. And I'm not going to speak for Morgan, but that it's worth it to know that if you want to be the best that you can be, you got to be yourself. So as I navigated the interview process, talking with Mark and the administration, immediately it was a comfortable conversation. I immediately brought up in the interview process my wife, my family, and it was completely normal. It was a completely normal conversation. Oh, that's great. I can't wait to meet your kids. I have 4 kids. Or, oh, that's terrific. Kara's, I got 2 kids, and how old are they? And, just a genuine interest. And then since I've been the head coach, my wife comes to all the games. They just treat us like normal people. We have normal conversations. My players feel connected to me on a deep level because there's just an overall acceptance of, and they know who I am and they can be part of my family. So I felt an unbelievable support system.
That's fantastic to hear. And Colleen, let's stay on that for a bit. You mentioned Spread Respect. This year, finishing your first year at the helm at Albany, you were able to participate as a head coach in the women's basketball Spread Respect event, but also probably imagining seeing other Spread Respect initiatives happening at the campus. Talk to me about what you saw, sort of the importance of that initiative, how you've maybe seen student athletes be impacted by that.
Yeah, I think it has been unbelievably impactful. And just even when I first got the job, before even the Spread Respect game started, every single one of my student athletes on my team had the Spread Respect patch on their jacket, had it on their book bag, all of them. 1 through 11, I only had 11 players. 1 through 11, everybody had it. So whether they were gay or they were straight, it didn't matter. Everybody knew that it was a loving, inclusive environment, that my gay players had straight allies, that I knew that they were inclusive, and that was important to them. They wanted to make sure that their teammates felt comfortable. So right off the bat, I knew it was going to be a really positive initiative. And then fast forward to the game, just seeing those shirts on the men's side, on the women's side, across all sports, and just the desire for young people to have a conversation. And 18 to 22-year-olds, they want to know that they're accepted. And we kill this generation, but they're the ones that are becoming more accepting. They're the ones that are pushing other people to open up their eyes, but they want to know that they're accepted and who they are. Okay. And by just having that shirt on, even if it's a men's basketball player or a men's coach or a soccer player, and having that shirt, they know that they're accepted, that this is a place that they can be successful, that they can grow and develop, and be the best version of themselves.
That's awesome. Great to hear. And you'll get the chance to participate in Spread Respect games next year. Let's talk a bit about family. Morgan, you mentioned a lot of change that you've been through and going from place to place, but recently married, recently transitioning to a new school, new city, new team. What was important for you and Lauren, in looking for the right fit in Hartford?
I'm a big feel person, and so when Mary Ellen first called me, I just had a good feeling. And then the more I got to know her and the other people in the department, it just felt right. Lauren's from an area, she's from Seattle, very liberal area, very accepting, and so it was important for her moving all the way across the country to be in a place that was similar. And I think she feels she's a physician assistant, and so within the last 2 weeks she's had tons of phone calls and interviews and conversations leading to interviews. So everyone's just been very welcoming, and that's been extremely important for her, just to feel more at home, because as a coach we hop around. And you're a family of coaches, so it's a little different. But it's I can kind of literally go anywhere and be fine. But when you have other responsibilities and other people to care for, it makes the situation a little bit different. So at Hartford, it really just felt right.
Yeah, good. Colleen, you and Lauren had a New York Times article written about you this year, and amazing article, really fantastic, highlighting your family. One of the things that you mentioned was, being openly gay since college. You've been in situations where you're navigating censorship. Do I mention my wife? Do I not mention my wife? How do I talk about my family as being an openly gay woman? What is it like to navigate those challenging situations? How do you make the decision, yes, I'm going to mention this, no, I'm not? I know that's a challenge and a struggle for a lot of coaches, especially as it relates to recruiting. So maybe you can share a little bit of insight into that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, because I think it always starts with a deep breath, right, and a kind of a little positive talk in my mind of, just be you, and have that. Be brave enough and be courageous enough and be committed to being a role model and be the person that you say that you want to be, and just be authentic. So I think you take a deep breath and you think about it, but unfortunately it comes through your mind, and sometimes it is. Earlier in my career as a younger assistant coach, it's been much more censorship. Also, working for different head coaches and what their expectations are, and luckily when I worked for Dave, I know it did mention in that article how he was a papa bear. Somebody asked who on our staff was married, and he immediately jumped in and was like, what does that matter? And he didn't want to recruit that individual anymore. And I think as a coach, you have a strong desire, and I have a strong desire to recruit loving, accepting young student athletes. I want them to contribute to my culture positively. But I want them to know who I am, so that I feel like I can build, true trust, and I can push them the way that I feel comfortable, and to get the most out of them. I think the more conversations you have, the easier it's gotten. Yeah. It's gotten much easier, and it's hard to say at first. But I do think that for me, it's sometimes, compared to maybe some other coaches, it's a little bit easier, because I am married. Right. I don't just have a long-term partner, so that's a little harder to explain. I can say my wife, my spouse, and then I also have 3 children. And I mean, either you're hearing them in the background while I'm on the phone yelling, or they're taking the phone, or they're somebody's texting me while I'm in a meeting. I mean, they're gonna be engrossed and engulfed in the experience of you being here. And if you have a problem with that, and I try to remind myself, if there's a question before in the recruiting process, or just when you don't know me, then you're probably not going to be a good fit here. And just to go back to what Morgan mentioned, and the building relationships, and when you allow people to get to know who you are, they don't see that anymore. But it just, that initial part of you're just you, and you're just honest, and that's what you expect from your players, and you try to emulate that every day as their role model.
Morgan, do you have any experiences or thoughts around that you can share with us as well?
Yeah, you're constantly trying to gauge, the way to bring it up, or the opportunity. With social media, we're all on social media, some form, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Most of my social media is basketball related, but sometimes it's nice for people to know that I'm human also, and I have a different side. So, posting a picture of Lauren or my nieces or my family does happen. So people can find out and they know, and if they're comfortable enough to bring it up, or if it happens in conversation, I don't exclude her by any means, but you have to gauge, and in the end, if someone isn't okay, there's a couple things. Kids, they're 18, and when you're recruiting them, they're 16 or 17. They tend to take the views of their parents. So whether or not they truly believe in things that their parents do, you don't really know. They take on the tone of their parents. So kind of filtering through that and when you get to know them, you can bring up different things. And then if they're not accepting, then it's probably not a good fit. Like Colleen said, it's probably not someone you want to bring into your locker room.
Yeah. Great. Thanks. Let's talk about the head coaching landscape in general, because there are very few openly gay Division I head basketball coaches, but we know that there are gay head coaches. And so why do you think that fear exists? What is preventing some of your colleagues or other coaches in this world to prevent themselves from being comfortable and sharing that openly, and being sort of in the position that you two are to talk about this in such a comfortable, normal way, that we hope everyone can eventually one day?
Well, I think the older coaches, it's a little bit harder. So they may have partners. It's a different. They grew up differently, and so we may know, but the world might not. Our world may know, but the entire general basketball world may not. So I just think we're at that age. We're not young, we're not old. We're kind of in the middle where we're, we are who we are. So you can love us, you can leave us. It's totally up to you. But I do think the younger generations, like Colleen said, they're kind of trailblazing these things, and we're in that middle part where we can be who we are, and sometimes those older generations feel like they're. It's not necessarily a privacy thing, but they just don't share as much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think there's just it still exists. There's a deep-rooted homophobia and sexism in sports. I think there's, I think a lot of coaches fear negative recruiting. I think a lot of people, because those stereotypes still exist. Parents may not want their children to go, or the fear of, oh, I don't want my daughter to play for a gay coach because she's going to turn gay. And we know that that's not the case. But some people just have those deep-rooted fears that's how people think. Yeah. But what I've found is unbelievable people surprise you. People surprise you every day. And when you give them the opportunity to show them who you are, there's way more accepting people than there are not tolerant people. And that's been really, exciting for me. And I know that, and I kind of have to do this in my mind a little bit, but that I have other skills. And if I can't coach basketball and be myself and be the role model for my family and my children and a role model for my student athletes by being my authentic self, then I should get another job. And I've got other skills, and I can figure something out and make money. So I think for me, it's always been going to the right fit, being the head coach of the right school, but also making sure that I remember what it was like to be a student athlete and have a closeted head coach and see other closeted coaches and their struggles. And it wasn't because they wanted to be closeted, it was just the way it was. And, I remember even being an AAU player where parents were talking about what coaches were gay. I mean, that existed when we played AAU. And I just want to be those for the young people and for the older people. I always put it on my bio as an assistant. I put it on my bio that I had a wife with children. I have it on my bio. Now, some people think that might make other people feel like they should or not. But for me, it's like, okay, do your research before you come see me, and you come on the visit and read my bio all the way to the end, and you'll see, and then you'll know a little bit about me before you meet me. But I think at the end of the day, it comes all about just understanding that this is a very difficult situation for many people, and I'm certainly not an expert in why people are, age, situation, administration, religious views of the university, but
even of themselves,
right,
like
of
their own
themselves.
religious.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different reasons why or why not, but the more we talk about it, the more Morgan and I are just our authentic self, the more we'll empower hopefully other people and empower our student athletes and create more diversity and inclusion, because we know that that's what makes the world a stronger place.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect lead in, because I want to close by just, you've mentioned it. Well, first of all, you guys are trailblazers in this capacity, so that's very commendable. But you are role models for this next generation, and so what can you as coaches, and Colleen, you just sort of teased out a couple of them, can you do as coaches and we as a league to continue to chip away at that culture of fear and build that safe, inclusive, diverse experience for student athletes?
I think first and foremost, Colleen said it multiple times, just be yourself, and allow people to get to know you, and just be open, have open conversations. It doesn't matter in being gay, being straight, building those relationships and allowing young people to come to you and kind of just tell you how they feel. I think that's the biggest step. People will, they don't have to necessarily agree, but it's the respect. It's, being okay. And I think if we can get people to that level, we'll be better off. But there's still a long way to go. Mm-hmm. I mean, in this country. So, but we are getting there. So,
yeah, creating an environment of mutual respect. Mm-hmm. And I think it, for me in our program, and hopefully Morgan and I will be very successful. Hopefully, she'll just only lose to me, and she'll beat everybody else. But I'm a coach. And I just happen to be gay, and right. That's just who I am. That's just, my family, but I'm a coach, and I'm paid to win games and to create leaders and to develop my student athletes holistically. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm committed to doing. And since I've become a mom, I look at other people's daughters as baby girls. Like, my baby girl is my prized possession. I mean, God love her, whoever has to deal with her. As she gets into her teenagers, that's going to be a little difficult. But, it is true. And I think the language that we use, the language that, in our press conference, when Morgan at her press conference is her family is welcome, and Mark in my press conference is welcoming my family and excited about articles that the New York Times wants to do on my family that brings light to the university. I mean, those words, the inclusive language from the administration, the initiatives from the conference, it tells other people, it creates a conversation, and over time it shifts the mindset. And I'm just so excited to be part of the America East and at Albany.
Well, thank you. Really appreciate both of you spending time to talk to us about this important topic, and we're very lucky to have you in the league. So thanks again.